Welcome to the content on staking your MON coins on the Monad blockchain. This is really focused in on how staking works. First of all, how you could get started staking on a validator like mine, ProStaking. Check us out, prostaking.com. And what does it look like to undelegate or claim rewards or compound rewards? What does all of this mean in Monad's terms? Then, importantly, how long does it take to do things? Is there an activation period or a cooldown period? Monad handles this a little bit differently than you've seen on other blockchains, but I think what they do is really brilliant. So in this set of videos, we're going to break down the key terms when it comes to staking. Not only how do you stake, but what should you expect from it? How long does it take? What is an epoch? What is a round? Where does it factor in when it comes with blocks? Let's all check it out. Let's go. So if I open up my Phantom wallet right here, we can see in my wallet, I've got some testnet MON coins, 94 testnet MON coins to be specific. And what I want to do is I want to stake it. I want to start earning some yield from this MON coin. Now, what kind of yield are we going to get and how does it get activated and deactivated and so on? That's what we're going to talk about. But I want to show you at the most basic level, one of the easiest ways to stake with a validator like mine at ProStaking is to go to GMonads.com, GMonads, plural.com. And then from here, there is a staking page. I can click on staking right there. We can connect our wallet like Phantom. I'll choose Phantom right there. We'll say it's okay to connect. And now I am connected in. We'll let it load some data for just a second. And it seems to be spinning a little bit here, having some hard time getting the data. But if I want to stake, say, 10 of these coins, right here in the new stake section, I can type 10, click continue. I can search for my validator ProStaking and give that a click. We'll choose continue one more time and stake those coins. Sign the transaction and boom, just like that, we're staked. Now there are some important things to know about staked MON for you, the end user. Right here, you are not active. That stake is not active immediately. Even though the status right here says active, it's not really true. It has to wait until the next epoch, potentially, to get that going. Rewards do start accumulating automatically, but it's up to you to determine if you want to compound them, basically restaking those rewards, or if you want to withdraw those rewards to your wallet so that you can spend it. On this particular page, you have the ability to do that. We can undelegate these as well or add to the existing stake. Just to show you, I actually changed to a different wallet that I have. And right here, we can say I can either claim my pending rewards or I can compound them into my existing stake. So I'll say compound like so, confirm, and done. We've now compounded my rewards back to this validator so that I can get even more yield out of it. So what really is going on under the hood? Monad has an interesting staking, design, and I really appreciate and like the way it does, but it is a little fuzzy the first time you see it, so we're going to break down some of the key terms and how staking on Monad really works, where your rewards come from, and what is it like to activate or deactivate a stake account on Monad. So let's immediately start to break it down here. In Monad and a lot of other blockchains, we have the concept of rounds and blocks. Rounds are an opportunity for a specific validator to make a block on the blockchain. Not every time that there is a round, there is a block. Sometimes validators go offline for whatever reason, and they miss their round, and therefore they miss their opportunity to create a block on a blockchain. Now, if you're totally unfamiliar with why that's important or what blocks do, a block basically means a validator sees transactions hanging out in the ether, like so, and it grabs these transactions, crams them into a block, and that block now moves money from one wallet to the next, or an NFT from one wallet to the next, and so on and so on. And the latest block is the current state of the blockchain. So whatever balance you had, if you made a transaction and that got included in a block, the next block will have, basically an updated state or an updated balance for you. So that's what validators do. They make blocks on a blockchain. And much like how Bitcoin miners, their whole purpose is to make blocks on a blockchain, whenever a validator creates a block, Monad generates 25 new MON coins and issues that to a group of people, including the validator. This is known as the reward. There are 25 MON coins generated whenever a validator creates a new block. Now the question is, where specifically does that 25 MON go? This is where you, the staker, come into play. That 25 MON gets created when the validator creates a block, correct? But that 25 MON doesn't just go to the validator. No, instead, it actually goes to the stakers minus the validator's commission. So if the validator charges a 10% commission, 2.5 MON goes to the validator, and that of course leaves 22.5 MON for the stakers. Now let's pretend that that validator has something like, we'll change the color here, just pretending 10 million MON staked to it, and you, of that 10 million, delegated 1 million of it, or you have 10% of the total stake of that validator. That means you get 10% of the 22.5 remaining MON, or in this case, that would be, of course, 2.25 MON every time that validator makes a block. Now, it is worth pointing out there is another mechanism kind of separate from all of this that exists in Monad, and that is the concept of priority fees. Users can pay an extra fee to make sure their transaction is included in the next possible block. As of right now, 100% of that priority fee goes to the validator. But they did build a mechanism where validators can share their priority fees. So it is possible that you could make more than just this hypothetical 2.25 MON in this situation if there are priority fees on the network. That's the first big hurdle to overcome. And then secondly, if the validator is, sharing those priority fees with you. For now, it's best to assume that this side, the left side of the screen, is how staking yield is going to occur. Now, I did say there was something interesting going on, and that is that, when you did that stake, when we did the stake on GMonads.com, it wasn't really active until the next epoch. Let's talk about how that works right here. Now, we did say that there was a concept of rounds versus blocks. And again, a round is where a validator gets a chance. A specific validator is chosen to make a block at that time. And as long as they're online and fully functioning, they should make a block, but stuff happens. Validators go offline. Something, as basic as software patches or even a hardware failure could take it offline. And if they miss their round, well, they just missed their round. And, it goes to the next validator in the list to make the block. So then this kind of begs the question, what is an epoch? An epoch is just a given amount of time for things to happen. You could think about it as a timeline. There is a start to an epoch, and there is an end to an epoch. And it is different on every single blockchain that exists. On Monad, an epoch, and this is important, an epoch is 50,000 blocks, not rounds, blocks. So right here, we will start out on block 0, and the epoch ends when the 50,000th block has been created and put on the blockchain. Right now, this lasts roughly 5.5 hours. I'll put hours right there. But obviously, if more validators were offline and missing their rounds, blocks won't be created as quickly and epochs will take longer. So obviously, if a validator is offline, it's not producing blocks, therefore it's not producing rewards, Therefore, stakers are going to undelegate their stake and move it to a validator that is online, so that way they actually get the reward that they're expecting. So let's talk about how this works. Right here, if a user stakes right here in this moment, somewhere in the middle, in between block 0 and block 50,000, that stake will be in a pending state until the next epoch. So if we said this was epoch 1, it'll be active in epoch 2. Now there is one thing that you need to understand, and that's also how the epoch delay period goes. We've already specified that the epoch boundary happens on the 50,000th block. So let's kind of draw a line right here that says 50,000, and then another line right here for the next boundary, which we know will be at block 100,000. As of course, we've been moving along right here into this environment, and this is where the epoch ends, and then it transitions into a new epoch around here. There is one really interesting thing that happens that directly affects stakers like you when you want to delegate or undelegate, and that happens kind of before the end of the current epoch. Let's say we're right here. This was epoch 1. Now let's say we are currently in epoch 2. If you delegate or undelegate right here, towards the beginning or in the middle of the epoch, that activated stake or deactivated stake will happen in the next epoch. Again, an epoch is roughly 5.5 hours long, so not a huge waiting period. But one of the interesting things that happens here is because of delegations, which means people are activating stake, or undelegations, which means people are, unstaking. How does this impact us? Well, think about it. If a validator goes offline, we want them to lose all of their stake, ultimately, so that when the next epoch rolls around, they don't get any rounds. We don't want a validator offline slowing the blockchain down because it's not producing blocks. We need to get that validator offline and out of the mix as quick as possible. And that happens when stakers realize they're not getting rewards, so they unstake. So at an epoch boundary, what happens is all of the validators, which are up to 200 validators total, that's the max, they will get basically a schedule of who gets to make rounds and make blocks in this next epoch. But what happens is right here in the middle, right before the epoch transitions, we move into something called the delay period. What the delay period is 5,000 rounds, not blocks, rounds before the next epoch transition. What happens in this period is Monads starts calculating what the next 200 validators will be, what their schedule will be, and it locks in right here at this moment what all the stake changes were up until this moment, right here at the start of the delay period. It takes a snapshot and figures out how it should allocate the 200 validators and their rounds for the next epoch. So the thing that I want you to know is if you're doing delegations or undelegations, they're going to be factored in right here at this snapshot moment for the next epoch. So if you activate on validator 1 right here, that'll be activated stake in the next epoch. If you deactivate on validator 2 right here, that'll be undelegated in the next epoch, and you can withdraw it then. But the question is, what happens if you activate during the delay period? It will not be activated until way over here in epoch 4. So any stake changes that happen during the delay period skip the next epoch and go into the epoch after that. So that's why we wanted to have a moment to talk about how all of this works. Not only how do you get started with staking and unstaking, claiming your rewards or compounding the rewards, something that you'll want to be, caught up with, you should also be aware as to how epochs work. They're 50,000 blocks, roughly 5.5 hours long. And there will be a delay period right towards the end of an epoch that is 5,000 rounds. Any stake changes that you make during the epoch, but not the delay period, will be in effect the next epoch. Any stake changes you make during the delay period will be in effect the epoch after the next epoch. So this has been how staking works. I highly encourage you to check out MONad's documentation. Go to the Developer Essentials section, staking, then staking behavior. It breaks down all of these key terms. It has a similar diagram that explains what we just kind of went over, and you can get a better understanding of how this currently works. If you really enjoyed this content, please feel free to support us at ProStaking by staking your MON coins with ProStaking.